Well, it's great to see everybody this morning in this special edition of Friday Facts. And I'm going to turn it over right at the beginning to Mark Hensley so that he can talk about why it's a special edition.
So thank you, David. Good morning, everyone. I am not on camera because I have
Can't hear you, Bob.
Can you hear me, David?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I heard Charlotte say she couldn't hear something. I am unable to be on camera because of internet issues, but this today is about a friend and colleague of mine that I want to introduce. We're at the end of Black History Month, and as most of you know, we celebrate Black History Month by looking at heroes from the past, and often these are heroes that are no longer with us. AARP nationally accepted nominations for local heroes in the community, and I am pleased to share with you that Reverend Odell Cleveland of Greensboro, North Carolina, was nominated and was selected as one of 12 local heroes in the entire nation, recognized by AARP for being a local hero for his work, and others who were awarded this recognition, their work in the community now. He is a caregiver. He started a nonprofit called Caregiver Connect several years ago through Mount Zion Baptist Church, who he is the COO and does a number of things with Mount Zion. He also, when a tornado hit Greensboro about 3.5 years ago, I got in touch with Odell, and he had already been on the phone with Congressman Mark Walker's office. He had organized on the grounds food response, shelter response, and continued to really beat the drum for assistance for the victims of this very surprise disaster in Little Greensboro that wiped out people's homes, damaged. He is always, from grass tops to grassroots, an advocate for the needs of not just older adults, but those around the church. He says, I want to bring, healthcare, social supports, housing, affordable housing, and adequate care to people as they age in place where I live. And he continues to do that. He is a published author of a couple of books I'm sure he'll share with you about. And I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to my friend, Reverend Odell Cleveland.
Listen, good morning, Mark. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. And I will add to that, Odell Cleveland is Glenda Cleveland's little boy. My mother called me Pumpkin as nickname. And, even though I'm a grown man, soon to be 62 years old, she still refers to me as Pumpkin, and I still smile. Just a little bit of background information. I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina in the late 60s, early 70s. South Carolina in those days was somewhat different. We had a beginning of a world-renowned medical university, which is now the Medical University. But before that, at age of 24, my mother was feeling ill and she was rushed to the hospital. And when she got there, the physician on staff said, well, she's just having paralysis, and sent her home. We tried to argue that she needed more, and he said that she needed to come back to the free clinic day. Well, that was on a Tuesday. And if anybody know anything about a stroke, seconds counts, minutes counts, hours counts, and in this case, days counted. My mother tried to, and my grandparents tried to advocate that, she was working full time at Manhattan Shirt Factory at the time. So she had insurance. And the gentleman insisted that, no, come back on the free clinic day. So she sent my mother home. My mother stayed home for about a day and a half, didn't get any better. And my mother called her doctor. Just so happened it was a white Jewish doctor. He came over, made a house call, saw my mother, and said, this is a stroke. We need to take her back. So we went back to the hospital, and the same doctor happened to be on call, said, I told her to come back on the free clinic day. And the doctor advocated for my mother, and they were able to admit her. And she stayed in the hospital for about 3 months, almost died. and our life as a family. And I apologize for my voice, but even all these years later, it's still very, very emotional because as everybody know, everybody on this call understands that this, taking care of people, dealing with folk, being a caregiver for 10, 20, 30, 40 years is rough. But as that may, we're all doing a good job or doing the best job we can. So we went through that and our lives changed forever. So here we are, poor, Black, South Carolina in the early 60s, divorced single mother 4, working full time, and, the pressures of life, had a stroke and got misdiagnosed. So that changed our life trajectory. But she told us something. She told us that we could be anything we want in life as long as we trust God, got the best education that we could, and do the best we can to help other people. And those are the 3 principles that I've been using for all my life. So it was a lie. My mother said it, and we believed it, and it worked for us. So out of her 4 children, I have a sister who went on and got an academic scholarship to Duke University, graduated. I was able to graduate undergrad and business degree, master's in divinity. Another brother who graduated from University of South Carolina with engineering degree. My mother went back to school, got a associate degree from College of Charleston, and I had what we call a baby sister, was going to Winthrop University, and tragically she got in a car accident and lost her life. So those things is how I got to this point here. This has been a very interesting week for me. What I call my big sister, earlier Monday, she had to have a double lung transplant. And I thank God that Duke University Hospital and the donor, it was a donor who cared enough to be an organ donor, who, because of that person, lost their life. And I pray for that person, their family. My sister was able to receive 2 lungs, and she's doing fine now. I was able to talk to her yesterday. Just a lot. And I appreciate the award, but like most of you, while we serving others, we still have needs ourselves, and we just have to keep pushing through. Thank God for a wife who says, you have to take care of yourself as you take care of others. So we are thankful. And just let me share one other thing, and then I'll be quiet for a minute, Mark and David and everybody else. But when you're that caregiver and you have to be strong for everybody else, I remember late Monday night, because there was a 12-hour surgery, and we would get play-by-play texts from my brother-in-law who's at the hospital. And he would say, okay, Dave, this is not funny, but sometimes things are so painful you have to laugh or cry. And I guess I'm doing both right now. So it's okay. He would say, well, both lungs are out, talking about my sister's lungs. Okay, they put one lung in. And, we get into play-by-play, and I'm sitting there saying, I have my sister who I love lying on a table with no lungs in her body. Okay, now she has one lung. Now, a couple hours later, she has another lung. And then, you just go that way. And sometimes you get caught in position in life where you have a mother who's 80 years old, who you've been caring for years. And now you have a sister who you've been knowing your whole life, older sister, that you are a caregiver for her also. But in the midst of it all, we still have to function and serve even through our pain, even through our hurt, and even through all the things we do. Yes, we do have to take care of ourselves, but some of us, not all of us, but some of us find ourselves in positions sometimes that it's like, how long, Lord? How long will I be a caregiver? Not that I'm complaining. I'm not complaining, but can you give me a hint? Can you just let me know? Because one thing I know as a minister, that when my time as a caregiver is up, whatever that means, will I feel guilty or relieved? And will I feel guilty for feeling relieved? And that's a question that I have to answer. And I think that's a question that many of us have to answer. So David, I know you didn't want a sermon this morning. That's not a sermon. That's just Odell crying, laughing, being real. Because a lot of times when we get these national awards, people think that, we're just people like everybody else who have challenges like everybody else. So I give myself and I give everybody else permission to say, you know what? It ain't always peaches and cream.
Whew. Well, thank you, Reverend Cleveland. And if I could just call you Odell,
Oh,
we've
Odell would
already
be
done.
perfect. My mama called me Pumpkin. If you want to call me
Pumpkin.
Pumpkin, you can call me Pumpkin, David.
I think I'll let your mom hold on to that one, but that's a great name. That's a great name. And I know I get authentic Odell every time I talk to you, and it's amazing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Tell us a little bit how you came from being in South Carolina. It sounded like it maybe around the Charleston area, but how did you get from Charleston to or South Carolina to Greensboro? Give us that story, if you would, in a nutshell.
Sure, David. One of the things that we all know, if you're poor and you're Black and you could dunk a basketball and you're a real good athlete, people come and find you. So I was able to get athletic scholarship to the University of South Carolina, Spartanburg, graduated in business, finished that. And then I got a job in corporate America. And after that training, I got transferred to Greensboro, North Carolina. People, and I didn't know anything about Greensboro. So I came here. The young lady who I was dating at the time, who's my wife, we got married, and here we are. Thought I would be here for a small time, but we've been here now for going on 36 years. So we like it. Got involved in the ministry, and now I have the pleasure to sit in a very important and powerful seat, the second seat at a very large African-American church. Well, let me just say, at a church. 99.999999999% African-American, but David, you could come. That's not a problem at all. You could come. And I wanted to make sure that what happened to my mother didn't happen to other people. Not that the stroke was anybody's fault. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that as the faith community, I thought that ministry is part of helping people who we don't even know, planting trees, trying to get healthcare institutions involved, doing all the things necessary so that other mothers, other single mothers, white, Black, green, yellow, it doesn't matter. Other people could be proactive and getting those things from mammograms to prostate exams. That's my passion. And I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I exercise all the disappointment, the hurt and the pain and all that kind of stuff? And I found the best way to do it is by helping other people.
And you do. And I have been to Mount Zion Church, and not for a Sunday service, but for the caregiving and the programs that you have. And it is an amazing church. Just give us a sense of how, when you say it's a big church, I have a pretty good idea, but tell everybody how big the church is and what has been happening there, please.
Well, it's about 120 years old. So a lot of our success is, of course, we thank God, and the shoulders of so many leaders and congregants who supported over the years. So we're looking at about 7,000 members with about an $8 million a year budget. And the job is to make sure, one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that we tithe. First thing, the church is not a business, but what I say is God's business. You can't be in here reckless, with folks' donations and stuff like that. So we pride ourselves in being good stewards, and we tithe off of the tithe. Let me explain. If we bring in $8 million, we make sure that at least $800,000 go back out into the community. That's 10%. And we make sure another percentage goes into planning and long-term and, all those kind of things, so that the people who come behind us, because Odell understands I'm not going to always be in this seat. And when I go see Jesus, or whatever we call it, whatever you call it, is the fact that we have to leave the legacy. We have to plant trees that we know we're not going to benefit from the shade because other people did it for us. So that's the kind of church we are. We are a very giving church. So that's how we find ourselves in the place of serving the community, because we believe that faith communities should serve the community. However, in a position where you bring out some things that the local healthcare institutions may not really like, when we say that you're spending $18 million a year in certain zip codes, and the majority of the people who get sick are using the ED as their primary care physician. And that's just costing money. And so we said, come on back upstream. Instead of taking the babies out, downstream, let's go upstream and see what the problem is. So those are the type of challenges and the nice resistance that we bring to the community, but also to the healthcare institutions. And you mentioned, Mark mentioned Caregiver Connect. Caregiver Connect is a 501c3 nonprofit that we have the pleasure of a young lady by the name of Alexis Williams, who's our executive director. And she's doing an amazing job. But we just try to give support financially and otherwise information to caregivers. It doesn't matter if you're a member of the congregation, you could call her from anywhere and she'll do the best she can, and also train other caregivers on how to help. And all that comes out of my passion for what I've been going through, because you could either complain about it or do something about it. And mommy told her pumpkin, you know what, you can do and be anything you want in life. So David, I'm still going with my mama and what she said, because what we learned on mom and grandma's porch means something.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for that. And you say you're getting a little resistance, but I think you're also doing a lot of teaching, because the local healthcare organizations are learning what caregiving needs to be, and how to address that upstream concern that people have. And I believe, and I've heard that you guys have had a fair bit of success in actually helping influence not only the healthcare system, but the political system as well.
Yeah, we do. We believe in making friends with everyone on both sides of the aisles. One of my personal beliefs is this, that the Democratic Party takes the Black vote for granted and the Republican Party ignores the Black vote. So the Black vote is caught between a political rock and a hard place. I mentioned earlier, I'm sitting in a very influential and powerful seat. I know I won't be in this seat forever. I know I didn't put myself in the seat. I believe that God put me in the seat as a leader. So I reach out to the Republican Party. I reach out to the Democratic Party. I reach out to everybody to say, hey, come over to the church, visit, let's talk. Let me share my concerns with you, knowing quite well that either party, we're not going to agree on everything. But if we can find some common ground on the humanity of people, then that's how it works. Because I've been married 36 years now, dated my wife 4 years, David. Something about when we were dating and we were in college, something about I had to have a job before she would get married. I don't know what was wrong with that woman, David. I don't know what was wrong with her. Something about I had to have a job and insurance and all that stuff. I don't know what was wrong with her in those days, But it's one of those situations where being married for 36 years, we still don't agree on everything. So I think the whole idea of arguing over the things that we don't agree on is really a waste of time, in my opinion. Let's try to find those things we do agree on. And I believe that incrementally, we could talk more about Medicaid expansion, Medicare. I think all those things makes a difference when we can show the business people, the business principles on how, if we are more proactive, then all of a sudden people are not using your emergency room or ED as a primary care physician. And they're like, well, yeah. But sometimes healthcare individuals, just like the young man who in 1968 talked with my mother, didn't listen. Sometimes large medical institutions don't listen either. So we're trying to, in a nice, quiet voice at first, get people to at least listen and understand. And sometimes our voices has to get a little more sterner, but that's kind of where we are.
That's a good place to be. Thank you. Catherine has a question she wants to ask.
So
Yes.
Mount Zion has, as you said, 7,000 members. And one of the things I think we're always interested in as a serious illness coalition is how do we activate the community to engage in these issues that we're talking about, to really keep an awareness and keep pressure not only on the healthcare system, but then to keep pressure on each other to get healthy. So how do you see churches like yours, and how can we mobilize other churches to do what you're trying to do, which is to really engage their population?
I would think the best way to do it is to find someone inside the faith community. A lot of times people who don't understand the culture, and I'm going to speak to the African American church. a lot of times people don't understand the culture of the African American church. It says, well, if I could only get a meeting with the pastor, well, the pastor doesn't really run the church. The pastor is the pastor. But if you could find Sister so-and-so who really have a passion for it, that's who runs the African American church. Black females run the African American church, always have, always will. So that's kind of what, okay, I got a hand clap up there. Okay. So I think those are the type of things that you learn. And I believe that one of the things, if you were coming to Mount Zion, you say, okay, Odell, let's have a meeting with this ministry, the caregiving ministry or the care team. That's how you get in, because the key is everyone needs each other, because what you all bring to the table, we need it. However, when you're a guest coming into another person's house, and especially if you're white, a lot of times when white institutions come into the African American church, it's like, well, let me come in to tell you what you need, versus coming in like a guest and say, you know what, let's work together. Let me find out what you're doing, because it's not like we're not doing anything. Let me find out what you're doing, and let me see how I could come in beside you and work along with you. And that sense of humility and respect goes so much further, because remember, the African American church over history was the only place where African Americans could come in and be in leadership positions. And that's not good or bad, that's just the truth. So I would love to invite the coalition in. I would love to partner with anybody who would like to partner with us. I would love to help broker relationships with other faith communities, African Americans, descent, and others around the state that I have a relationship with people of, because it's all about relationships. It's always has and always will be about relationships and understanding the other person's. I love Mark Hensley. Why do I love Mark? Well, Mark came in years ago and we built a relationship. So if Mark say, Odell, I need you to do this, 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 I'm like, of course I do it, because of my love and my respect for him.
That's, those are important lessons. And please tell me that the relationships are improving. I just desperately want to hear that, but I'm being rhetorical here. But we have so much to learn, and you know, our coalition is made up of a whole lot of folks across the whole state, and we've got people on here from Raleigh, from the east side of the state, from the west. We got Jeffrey Long from way in the west side of the state, and it's an important group. There's Jeffrey, and he's been a previous interview person that we've had. And we've got folks across the political spectrum and so forth, but we need to hear these. I don't want to just say stories, because they're more than stories. They're truths. What would you tell us that we should do as not as an organization, but as people, to make a difference in this whole world of advanced care planning, caregiving, clinical practice, in the whole serious illness world? And then I've got Karen Appert wants to ask a question too.
Sure. If it was before COVID, I would say that you call someone to say, hey, can we meet at Panera Bread? Can we meet at Starbucks for a cup of coffee or something like that? Because a lot of times just sitting down, talking to someone and just sharing with them, hey, this is what I do. We would love to partner with your church. What do you do? Instead of coming in like a salesperson, because no one wants to be sold. You know, no one, even if we want to buy, we don't want to be sold, you know? So it's just like, hey, let me share with you what we're doing. What does your church do? You know, that kind of stuff. What do your faith community do? And I think that's the essence. And it's not going to all happen in the first meeting, but one of the goals coming out of a lot of my first meetings that, can we meet again? Can we meet again? And when we meet, this is what we want to talk about. That is simple as that. Sitting down, having a cup of coffee, having a cup of tea with someone, and that kind of stuff makes a difference. And ask them, where would you like to meet? Because a lot of times we don't think about it, but we can be intimidating when we come in with these big titles and all these things, because every faith community, trust me, needs what you're offering from individuals. Because I'm a caregiver for a sister now who's lying in Duke University Hospital, and she's doing better. But at the same time, I'll be leaving here, driving to Charleston, South Carolina to care for a mother. So we all need it. And I bet when people are transparent and you give them your why do you want to meet me? Why do you do what you do? Because David, once we know our whys, then it's so much easier to see the humanity in all of us.
Thank you so much. That is so simple, and yet somehow it's so challenging for us. I see Jeffrey Long, who I just mentioned, has his hand up. Jeffrey, did you have a question for Odell? And you got to unmute.
You guys got to remember I'm on satellite internet, so everything I say will be delayed for a couple of seconds. So just let me finish what I've got to say, and then you can answer me. I just want to say I'm glad to be back. I've been through a lot through Christmas and lost my father to dementia, and just glad to be back. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. And Jeffrey is, we interviewed Jeffrey about a year ago, I think, and it was an incredible interview. He's in the very western part of the state. And go ahead, Jeffrey.
It was on dementia we interviewed, right?
Mhm.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. That helped me a lot.
That's great. That's great. And Jeffrey is in the
But I want to
LGBTQ
tell you,
community,
I'm glad to be back.
and we're glad that you're here too. Jeffrey is in the LGBTQ community, and he is Native American, and in a very isolated area in the West. So it's great to have him here. So as you can see, Odell, we've got folks that just represent a huge diversity of thoughts and perspectives here in the state. So tell us about your book, if you don't mind. You wrote a book not too long ago, Odell.
I did. I had the pleasure of, really was therapeutic, for me, traveling back and forth to Charleston every other weekend, trying to make sure that my mother is taken care of, because the essence of it is, if one poor Black, divorced, paralyzed mother can raise 4 kids and send us all to college and put herself through college, we felt that the 3 remaining kids could take care of one mother. Now, that's easier said than done, but I'm sure when she took care of us, it was easier said than done. So I started writing and talking to myself, driving back and forth in the car. And then I think I may have started answering myself in thoughts. So I said, okay, it's time to start writing this stuff down. So, because I'm like, listen, I'm traveling to different parts of the world, flying to Paris, flying to Israel, taking interfaith groups to Israel and all this kind of stuff as a leader. But when life taps you on the shoulder, Dave, and it says, it's your turn now. So it's like, nobody care about that reverend stuff. Nobody care about all accolades. Nobody care about all that. What your family need is you, authentically you. In a lot of cases, as caregivers, it's not so. A lot of families struggle with it because the person is like, well, I'm too busy, or I'm doing this, or we act like if we called on a Sunday and talked to mom or dad for 2 or 3, 20 minutes, then we've done our due diligence or send a check. So I say all that, that's how I started writing the book. The book is called It's My Turn Now, and it talks about the struggles and the challenges, and also the happiness and pain that we experience as a family, how we work together as a family and all those type of things. So it's, step 1, step 2. It's not a clinical type book, but it's one just for a family. Just, I guess, based on what you said earlier, David, we know we're going to get authentic Odell. Well, that what the book is about, authentic Odell, just talking about it. And then after that, someone asked, can you do a workbook? And to help families kind of go through and work through it together. So we put a workbook out also. Oh, somebody has the book. Okay, that's my Mark. Mark has the book. Okay, good. So it works well, but at the same time, it was therapeutic for me. I needed, I guess, in a funny way, I guess I had to go back to my childhood when I would try to break into my sister's diary. I don't know if you all remember diaries with the little key on there and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes we just need to write things down. we just really need to write things down. And that's what I did. And it turned out to be a book that people seems to really like and enjoy the authenticity of it and the realness of it. And also what people have told me, and I didn't think about it this way, they said, Odell, as a Black male, you all are not usually, people could be tactful, Catherine, in a way, but they feel comfortable enough just to say, Odell is a Black male. You all are not really caregivers, are not used to seeing you all as caregivers. And I've learned not to get offended at things because sometimes we could get offended over anything. I just tried to put myself in a position where that person was coming from and acknowledge that the goodness of their comments and take it from there and said, you know what? I understand your thoughts, but the individual was giving me a compliment. So you have to be careful on how you receive it. So that's was very unique to this individual, that a Black male would be a caregiver and also write about it in a way that she could understand it and she could appreciate what we were doing.
And it's a great book. I also have a copy. I don't have it right in front of me here, but it really is an amazing opportunity for us to see what a male can do. And I'll just put it that way. You've said it exactly right. And we do need to wrap up, but I just want to thank you for being so, let's just use this word again, authentic. I mean, we got the authentic Odell Cleveland here this morning, and thank you very much for just, and I know that that's who you are, and that's what you give all the time, but we really appreciate it. I will mention that Karen Appert, who is our working group leader for the Caregiving and Patient Engagement Working Group here, says, I'm going to be in touch with Odell, so you need to plan for that. And you're familiar with and Mary Lou and Sue Deaton and others are, and Charlotte Sweeney are all nodding their heads. But, and I know you're a busy guy, but please continue to work with us as you have opportunity, because we do need what you have to offer.
Listen, thank you so much. And what I would ask you all to do is please continue to pray for the donor who cared enough to donate his or her, I don't know, organs so that my sister had an opportunity to have a second chance at life. So we're all in this struggle together, but at the same time, I will definitely avail myself to whoever calls and helps, because this whole thing is so passionate to me. And you're right, we're very busy. However, we make time for the things that matter, and we have to prioritize. And this is very, very important to me. COVID came through, as you all know, and we had to do a bunch of things with COVID, but COVID seems to be behaving itself a little better now. And I don't want to offend anyone by saying that. So just want to, yes, I'll be available. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye,
Thank you all for
everyone.
having me. All right.
I'll have
Bye-bye.
a great weekend.